Discuss as the coup leaders have shut down the airspace, saying that foreign powers and other regional bloc institutions with us in the studio. We already have our panelists seated tonight. Dr. Ngwnyam is with us in the studio. We also have Dr. Michael Dimancho, Tah Mai Jarvis, while we await the arrival of Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, who is caught somewhere in traffic. Good evening, Dr. Ngwnyam, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good evening to co-panelists and the listeners back at home. It's a very exciting topic today, and the angle from which I'll be approaching it will be completely different, so I hope you will pay attention and listen keenly.
Dr. Michael Dimancho, good evening and welcome.
Thanks so much, Lasha. Kingsley. It's nice meeting with you again. It's going to be a good discussion. Thanks so much for inviting me. And hello to all Cameroonians, all Africans, and of course, I want to send my special regards to the families of the Jan 5, of course, who fortunately, finally, we came to discover that they were indeed killed because there was still suspicion. And my heartfelt condolences to the family, and we pray that Cameroon should once more experience peace.
Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tah Mai Jarvis. Welcome.
Good evening, Lasha. Though the evening is not that good, especially when you look at the activities plaguing our nation's Cameroon, taking you into the heart of Douala, where traffic is the order of the day, indiscriminate dumping of refuse is the order of the day. In fact, the people seem to have abandoned the natural and proper way of disposing waste, and also potholes and seem to be the order of the day. But however, I want to also say it is a sad evening for the Jan 5, whom we have all been asking questions, where are the Indian 5, and I'm sure on other sisters program we've been asking, and today it was official when we saw how their bodies were exhumed and to be given proper burial. It is a sad day for the families of these persons who never had accountability from 2021 when they were kidnapped by their captors, and right up to date when we only knew that they had been buried and we only saw the communique today. And we are calling and asking the question, when will this end? It is a sad note, and again I want to say that good evening to those who are watching us from different parts of the world, and those who are active on their social media platforms who will be disagreeing with us hatefully sometimes, but we want to let them know that my Media Prime is there for them to come and share their opinion and take responsibility.
Yes, we are going to be focusing tonight on the crisis in Niger, where the coup leaders have shut down the airspace and, of course, warning anybody not to fly over their airspace. Dr. Ngwnyam, before we get into the discussions tonight, maybe you comment on the Indian delegates, the corpses that were exhumed and buried, before we get into the discussion tonight. What were your feelings when you watched the reports or the official statement that has to do with the corpses of those delegates?
I saw a short video of it on one of our sister television stations. It was on social media, and I felt so bad that we allowed things like this to happen. And you know, sometimes when you just hear about things, sometimes you don't take them seriously, but you see the bones of people who were like you, talking like you the other day, are now being dug from the grave. It shows they have transitioned to the other side, and I'm just wondering what they went through, the pain they went through, the pain the family has gone through. And I think if we were doing the right thing in this country, we would not have been going through this kind of trauma. And I just pray that God stays with us, shows us the way, and gives us the mindset to be able to solve this problem and stop this unnecessary killing. It is it's our responsibility to do what is right, what is just, and what is good to stop this carnage.
Yes, Doctor, the right thing should be done as we speak now to stop the bloodshed. Dr. Michael Dimancho, you equally watched the images of the corpses of those Indian delegates being exhumed.
Yes, gruesome images, Lasha, Kingsley, indeed very frightening, and we are asking this whether these acts were committed by human beings. And of course, when you look at the young people who are in the bushes and who are committing these crimes, you ask yourself, when did they start this? And it gives you a kind of fear, you know, and you're asking yourself, where are we heading to in this crisis? That people are mercilessly murdered, decapitated, and then buried in that kind of a way without any respect for human life, you know. Then it brings us to the fact that something really needs to be done, because I think that we have gone across the line, and if something is not done, much more will happen. You understand the kind of level where these boys are. They have gone out of human thinking. They have gone out of humane way of acting, and now they are acting like people who are under drugs, or I mean under some kind of possession, you know, they have been possessed, you know. So I think, honestly, my heart goes to the family of these people, you know, when they see this. These are people who are only doing their job, serving the government, serving Cameroonians, and they have to suffer this, die in this kind of you know, shameful way, like the Bible relates us about the death of Jesus. You die in this kind of a shameful way, and then it is projected for the whole world to see. You see how your own brother or your own sister went out to serve a whole nation, and that he has this kind of very, very bad end. So I really think that sometimes something triggers another, and the trigger here should be that the government should actually rise up. And as I usually say, sometimes when it reaches a certain point, it is not the weaker power that goes to the stronger power. It is the stronger power that actually goes down to extend a hand of fellowship. Because remember, sometimes when a horse falls down, it always jerks up the leg to fear that, to let people know that it has fallen. And I really think that our brothers and sisters in the Northwest and South region who have been radicalized, I really think that there should be a rethink. And I'm happy, interestingly, the person who showed the way to where these were buried was an ex-combatant who is now in the DDR. I think that this should be a big lesson, and that other people may come out, the other boys should come out and be able to show forth, I mean, the traces of all of this, so that we should follow the footsteps.
Okay, so that we should follow the footsteps. Dr. Ngwnyam, we are talking crisis in Niger today, and there has been a new twist in what is going on in that country. My question tonight, I will throw it to all of you, but you will begin answering the question.
Yes.
Was Africa ready for independence? What is happening in Africa? Multiple coups.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lasha. Was Africa ready for independence? That's a very big question, and if I had to talk about it, you know, I might be going for 1 hour just trying to explain that. But the bottom line is that yes, Africa had independence in quotes, political independence in quotes, but we have seen that 60 years down the road something is not working, and it's time for us to really question ourselves. And that's why I'm saying that in as much when we'll be dealing with this topic, I'll be trying for us to understand what went wrong and what we need to do as Africans, because as you see, there's something that we are not doing right, and it's incumbent on us to make sure that we correct what we have been doing wrongly, so that we can get this fixed. And that thing that we've been doing wrongly, no white man is going to show you how to do it, no Chinese, no Russian is going to show you how to do it. It's us. We have to realize where the shoe pinches and correct that. And we have this mistake in all countries in Africa, so it looks like it's a black man kind of thing, and we need to actually correct it. If we don't correct it, we are going nowhere. There is something missing in our system, and I would have time to show us.
Okay, something missing in our system. Tah Mai Jarvis, with what just happened in Niger, we tempted to say that Africa was not ready. What they introduced to us as democracy, we were deceived.
The problem is not whether we were ready or not. The problem is how humane are Africans to Africans. Because I want to believe that we cannot be talking about coup d'etat and limiting it only to the military. We have financial coup d'etat. We have embezzlement coup d'etat. We have health coup d'etat. We have social coup d'etat. Let me explain why I'm saying this, and in all fairness, 60 years after regaining independence in most African nations, leaders who claim they are being remotely controlled by the West, who controls huge sums of budget, embezzle these budgets. You will hear one person who embezzled 50 billion CFA, and all the wealth of Africans, they take it to the colonial West. And somebody used this anecdote in Switzerland, and she said She wants to move to Africa. And her colleague in Switzerland asked why. He said, the wealth that is in Swiss, stored by Africans, is a testimony that that continent is extremely rich. But come and look at the reality. So coup d'etat, there is a push and a pull factor. Africa was ready and had been ready for independence. Let me give an example. Ethiopia was never colonized. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. You move to Jomo Kenyatta. You move to also, you come now to the level of Tanzania. You had all those Pan-Africanists who stood for one and indivisible Africa. If you look at the speeches on Kwame Nkrumah said, the independence of Ghana would be meaningless unless it is linked with the total emancipation of its different African states. You move down to Tanzania, Kenya. All of these frontline leaders were actually humane. But the question now is, after them, what became of the Africa? If you look at coup d'etat, what is the push factor for coup d'etat? The push factor for coup d'etat is underdevelopment, poverty, broken promises. When you make promise that you are going to keep, for example, we have political coup d'etat. You will tell your electorate that you are going to construct roads, you are going to do this, you are going to do that. Immediately after you take over power, you forget about those promises. That is a coup against those who voted for you. Come to the issue of Africa, whether we're ready for independence or not. Africa was ready for independence. But the challenge is the mindset of those who are actually leading Africa. If you look at what
does that not explain the fact that they were not ready intellectually to lead the kind of education that they received?
It's not kind of education. It's because Africans have decided to inflict pains on Africans. For example, the same education they receive from the West is the same education the West have taken to develop their nation. The West did not teach. Let me zoom in Cameroon. The West did not teach former ministers in Kundengi to embezzle the amount of money they embezzled. Did the West tell them that? Did the West also tell them they defend huge sums of budget for health sector, but how many of their kids go to our hospitals? How many of them access our hospitals? If they are sick, they'll be flown to Lisbon, Paris, Switzerland, New York. If their children have to go to school, they will have to school in Manchester, Harvard, Westminster. None of them will have to go to our schools. But look at the budget that's been voted for. I want to tell you that it's not that Africa was not ripe. Because if Africa was not ripe, Ethiopia would have been colonized. Ethiopia was never colonized. Ethiopia fought hard. If Africa was not ripe, Jomo Kenyatta would not have fought. If Africa was not ripe, the UPC movement in Cameroon, or Felix Olamumi, Omnio Bell, would not have stood and said, we want first reunification before independence. So the context that we are having is that the leaders that took over after the founding fathers were people who decided to derail and became people who have decided to be coup d'etats. We have coup leaders in Africa. That's why we have now the pull factor now comes in with physical coup d'etat that you see. People are tired. And I'm telling you that if you look across the spectrum, we have constitutional coup d'etat. Mandates are made, 2 years no renewable. It's thwarted and move to renewable. Is that not coup d'etat? How do we look at this in context? I want to say that Africa was ripe for independence since from 1960, but the inheritors of this independence decided to put in from their personal basis and align with the West to suit their individual coffers.
Dr. Michael Dimancho, was Africa ready for independence?
There are many perspectives in which I can answer this, because you need to be able to walk from the 1960s and see the route, follow the route to independence.
Because it's as if they hand you something that, okay, you are right now, doctor, manage this thing. 60 years after, you've not even moved.
Yeah, but it is not
a step forward.
It is not after 60 years that we'll ask the question whether they were ready, because at that very moment when they were handing this, they knew that they were ready. That's why they were handing. Even though people would say, okay, it was a win, that nobody could stop it at that moment of decolonization. But then it cannot be generalized, because when you look at countries like DR Congo, the former Zaire, we understand that the crisis, the Zaire, immediately after independence, was blamed on unprepared independence. Of course, there are some facts about some of those countries but we cannot be talking about that actually 60 years after, whether they were prepared. We cannot be talking about that today. I think that it is just, sometimes people like to lay blames on the presidents or on the leaders, but I would want to look at the population as a whole, the citizens of Africa as a whole. We have failed in our missions because you keep on pointing there. Let me tell you, sometimes these presidents are helpless. They are helpless. Why? Because you see presidents who think that they can be defended in times of crisis, in times of after attacks. But you find citizens who are lukewarm, who are not ready to fight to defend their own countries. You find citizens who are even the one who are the coup plotters, who connive with the external hand to take over the country or to destabilize the country. We have had a lot of, because people even talk about dictatorship and talk about prolonged powers and all of that, constitutional powers. Yes, that could be a factor, but to me it's minor. In the UK, we have the monarch, or we have, I mean, that goes forever, and there has never been any coup. People are living in Europe and they are enjoying it, and nobody stands up against the queen or against the king to say that you have been in power for so long, you have to get up. So you see that it is the issue of mentality, that we have refused, that because we are so greedy. Rather, I'm thinking of not independence, but I'm thinking of the democracy that we got, that we were not ready for.
Yes, that should be.
Yes, I'm talking the democracy that we went into that we were not prepared for. Because I would like to give an example of Libya. Libya is that country that was ruled by Muammar Gaddafi. Many people do not know that Libya has had an exceptional democracy in Africa called the Jamhuriya, that no country in Africa has. It was its own kind of democracy, and the people were okay with it. That kind of democracy that gave them free housing, gave them free electricity, free maternity, health care, and all of those. And the people were happy. During the time of Gaddafi, before 2011, you hardly saw the Libyans out of the country. You counted them in America, in Europe, you counted them. Because they were comfortable back, but they were ruled by who? A dictator, whom of course I call an enlightened dictator. Because we have to distinguish them. There was somebody who was looked upon as a stubborn person in the West, but internally was good for the people. And when you make that distinction, you really see that it is not an issue of Africans being prepared. It is just an issue of the greed of the citizens that has rendered Africa to where it is today. Tah Mai Jarvis quoted an example of Ethiopia. Ethiopia has an interesting story. I'm not even looking at the fact that it was not colonized, but I'm looking at Ethiopia of the legacy that Haile Selassie left up to today. And doing the legacy, Ethiopian airline. People don't know the story behind the Ethiopian airline. Ethiopia, exactly. Ethiopia was regarded as the center of the Union, African Union. And what did Haile Selassie do? He said, if this is the center of African Union, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to facilitate the transportation of all African Union to here. And that is how he came out with the Ethiopian airline. He projected, he looked ahead and said, but people cannot be suffering to come here. If Ethiopia can build up an airliner that can be able to carry people, you know that there is incontestable in Africa today. So the point is that in Africa, we look at development in a very, very short-sighted way, in a very, very, ephemerally. But you find people in Europe and America, they look at it perennially. Means that they project far over there. And
so Doctor, are you saying that Africa needs something else?
Africa,
apart from what was sold to us as democracy?
Yes.
Because with these multiple...
To me, democracy was not our thing.
Democracy has failed the African country.
Exactly, Asha. That's what I'm saying. A democracy was not our thing. And I still want... if you ask my opinion, I will say that we need to go back to what we know. We took up democracy at the point that we didn't know what democracy was. Let me mind you, the democracy as it came up from Greece, because that's the origin of democracy. As it came up from Greece, it is practiced differently in Europe, practiced differently in America.
Even currently in America.
Yeah, exactly. Currently. We should be very careful what we call democracy. And that is why sometimes when you see one of these coup d'etats, I supported it. And I did it, overwhelmingly, and said, yes, sometimes you need this change for people's eyes to open. That the issue you call democracy. We have had, 6 coup d'etat in Niger, and it was necessary for Niger, because we don't put stooges to serve the people. The issue of democracy that we want to practice is not our thing. It is a wind of change. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Niger today. And I hope that it comes to Central Africa. That is my prayer. Yes, that is my prayer, and that is my wish. It is a wind of change, and it is something that's very important for Africans. Until we get back to that enlightened despot, we will not go anywhere. It is not an issue of independence or getting independent unripe. It's an issue of embracing democracy, that we were not educated about it, and we didn't know what it was all about, and then we took it and wanted to practice exactly as America is practicing when America is 200 years independent. We should go back.
Dr. Ngwnyam, what is the problem of Africa?
Thank you very much. I think I would just reserve that question. let me follow up on this democracy thing. Let's trash it and put it to the side. Then we enter into the meat of the matter today. You see, Africa is not ripe for democracy. Africa is not ripe for democracy. And I learned this from Bishop Duncan Nicholas. I don't know if you know him. He's the Ghanaian, a huge guy like that, a preacher. And he talks with a very big voice. Yeah, and he talks with a very big commanding voice. You know, when you listen to all these social media things and videos, you should learn something from the people, because there's always a message that you can pick up. And he said, Bishop Duncan Nicholas said, Africa, number one, Africa was not ripe for democracy. And he said, in Africa, you know, you access rule in the democratic system. You access the power through elections, but the elections in Africa are not what they're supposed to be. That's the bottom line. And why is it so? It's so because the electorate is ignorant. The electorate is poor and hungry. So votes are bought and sold, and so many things happen that the ballot box, the ballot box does not truly represent the will of the people. So that's already a problem.
So why are the people not rising up?
No, how can they rise? Because we have said that we are going to live according to democracy. Then now, but the thing, when the thing comes on the table, you know, this jumbo thing, you take this, you know, people do it like this, and at the end of the day, so something happens that does not truly represent the will of the people, and that is the problem. And Bishop Duncan Nicholas was saying that what Africa needs is, and I learned this term from him, which Dr. Dimancho was mentioning. What Africa needs is, Africa needs enlightened, benevolent despots. If you just take that a despot on his own is not good. But that despot must be qualified by two adjectives. One, enlightened. Enlightened means you know what you are doing. You are not an idiot. That's what it means. You are acting with wisdom. You are enlightened, and you know the solutions, and you know what is good for the people. You are a father. Two, benevolent. That means you don't give a snake to your children, you give them fish. That's what it means. You know that they need fish and you give them fish, you don't give them a snake. And despot means you are firm. You are firm, you don't waver. You get up in the morning and say, look, there's a lot of dirt in Douala and we need to clean the dirt. And you clean it. Then you say, look, there are people who have built their houses in waterways and are blocking, the houses must come down, and they come down. That's that. You know, you are firm. You get what I'm saying? When you put all these things together, the country will move forward. People are not very interested in the change of power that, oh, after every 10 years, another person should change. But if you are an enlightened despot, enlightened, benevolent despot, and you meet the needs of the people, you can stay there till thy kingdom come. Nobody would bother about you, because you are there to feed the people. You know, when Christ was living, he asked Peter, Peter, do you love me? Peter says, yes. Said, then feed my sheep. So it is that feed my sheep that is all. Life is about feed my sheep. When you're a leader, feed my sheep. But our leaders don't understand what it means, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep means take care of the common good. You know, His Eminence Christian Cardinal to me, he said, politics is about, if you want to succeed, take care of the common good. So we have failed there. And so what are the issues to be looked at? You also know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, don't you? You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it comes from, it's a guy called Maslow, a psychologist who described this, and he puts the need of the human being in a pyramid or a triangle like that. And yes, and in that triangle, pyramid or triangle, he has 5 levels. You have the basic physiological needs are the first, which are food, water, air, sleep, and a couple of other things. Yeah, and a couple of other things I mentioned. Then you go to the second level. The second level is about safety and security. The third level is love, because we are social beings and we love. So we like to give out love, and we like to receive love. And then the fourth level is ego. Ego is self-pride. You know, is my father can be a truck pusher, but I'm proud of my father. And you have no right to insult my father because he's a truck pusher. You understand? So, to those of you who are big people and have cooks and drivers in your house, please, I just want to tell you this: respect them. Respect your cook and your driver. Respect the person who's cleaning your floor. You know, sometimes we get so caught up that they are human beings and their husbands and parents of some other people. So it is about basic human respect. Respect other people just because they are human beings. Then the fifth level is self-actualization. What is self-actualization? Okay, when I was in secondary school, I wanted to become a medical doctor. And then I struggled, went to university and became a medical doctor and a surgeon. The question 60 years afterwards, and so what? You are a surgeon, and so what? When you ask that question, and so what, then it elevates you and takes you out of that triangle. Are you seeing where I'm going? Because you live life in two spheres: life in the triangle and life out of the triangle. When you are thinking above the triangle, out of triangle, you have reached the transcendental phase. You are more spiritual. You turn around, you have satisfied yourself, and you turn around and you are looking at the world and you are saying, oh, there are so many people suffering. What can I do to help? And then you begin to realize that when you are giving, then you feel good.
Doctor,
and
are you saying that the African leaders,
yes,
they don't know these things?
That is right. They don't.
Because you have most of them with gray hairs, but they still act like babies.
Yes, you have people with gray who are foolish. This is it. You have gray hair, you have all the power, but you're so stupid.
It means they have acquired almost everything in life.
Yes,
Why can they not give back to the society?
You know that in this country there was a time we were talking about belly politics. You know what belly politics is? That is, you are a very big person, but your mind dwells on food. Your mind dwells on. You see, we were talking about that Maslow's hierarchy of Maslow. You understand? When people say you are mature, it means you have gone up. You have gone up, and the real maturity comes when you go out of that and you reach that transcendental phase, where it is not the food. We all need food and water to survive. But you are looking at it from a higher level, like a helicopter. Then you realize that there are more people who need your help. You need to feed those people. You become the Peter, feed my sheep. So looking after those people is the highest of callings, and that's what leadership is all about. But if you have leaders who steal and pile money and so on, though they are leaders, they are presidents, their mindsets are still at the food. And safety, security. They want to pile for their children's children, but they have 50 million other children that God gave them that they don't care about. That is the problem. Do what is right for the people. Do what is good, true, and just. Think about the common good. Love, speak the truth. Bring this to the table, and you'll be the best leader.
Sometimes, doctor, this will is there for them to do these things you are talking about.
It's a lie. They don't have the will.
But they have other factors.
Lies.
Pressure coming from.
If you say if you are a leader, wait a minute. If you are a leader, that one a lie. If you are a leader,
but if you are put there by somebody, you are being supported by somebody.
Put by who? Either you are a leader or you are not a leader, and that's what the coup is all about. Yes. Because people think they have a leader, but you are saying you are not a leader. But people want a leader, not a fake. So if you are a fake, that's what you get. Either you are a leader, and if you truly know that you are not a leader, dégagez.
Lasha, let me just add to what Doctor said. And Doctor has painted the pictures as it is. And the thing is, let's look at the reality. During COVID-19 in Cameroon, for those who are watching us out of Cameroon, bags of rice were given to take care of the lockdown period. Did Emmanuel Macron, President Trump at the time, the Queen at the time, did they ask these persons not to give the bags of rice? Come now to the budget that were defended. The budget that were defended for different, let's come to the health sector, doctor. The budget that were defended at the health sector, how much has been actually put into the health sector? Did these presidents who put the same people in power refuse them? Ministers have budget. Ministries have budget. Come to roads network in Cameroon. The roads network, that budget were given, that these roads should be constructed. Look at the Bonaberi road. Destructions were done, but tiny road was constructed. And let's be honest with ourselves. Look at how many persons are in Kundingi. That's a proof. How much money one person will embezzle 70 billion at FECOM. 70 billion. Put that he eats 2 million per day in the next 1,000 years. That money will still be there. That's what doctor is saying, that they will have decided to remain at the level of their bed-led politics. Another person will embezzle 30 billion.
That's why I raised the question. Did we have the necessary education? Did we receive the necessary education? Those values that Dr. Nick is talking about.
It's the same education Dr. Nick received. The same education we received. Why are we talking about it this way? The same people studied in Harvard. It's the same education. These people leave Cameroon or Africa. They go to St. Petersburg and snap pictures, show how nice St. Petersburg is. But when they come to Cameroon, the Yaoundé street, Douala street is not good. These same people look at other airports. Even if it's not the same education, the same people that gave you this curriculum, they have used the curriculum to develop. The thing is greed, as doctor has pointed it out. In simple way, is greed. Let us be tactical here. Look at what happened in other countries. Let's come to Nigeria, for example. When the current president took over, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he was voted immediately as the ECOWAS chairperson. His first word was against coup d'etat. And do you know why? Because the election that brought him to power is questionable, massively questionable. And so he's one that the ECOWAS will not accept coup d'etat. And because he has foresaw that if there is a judicial proceedings and it happens that he's not supposed to be president, he will resist. And so the military may be forced to come in. And when you look at all these contexts, Lasha, it's not an issue of education. Dr. Michael Dimancho made it clear. We have been made to understand that democracy is the thing. And your question was, is Africa ready, or was Africa ready for independence? Africa was not ready for democracy, but they were ready for independence, and they have been ready for since the time that they started fighting in North.
If you say you are ready, they say, okay, no, this is here comes democracy.
Lasha, independence is not. Democracy was not one of the units of analysis for independence. It was not. It was that manage your resource. Let me ask you,
how you manage a resource?
Lasha,
you manage a resource under a certain form of government.
No, form. Yes. Democracy is one.
Yes. It's just one.
It's one. Democracy is just one.
But that's what they said is okay for Africa.
That was not what they said was okay for Africa. That was what they started.
So why is coup a problem? Why are coups problem in those African countries?
Forms of government. We have dictatorial. We have liberal. We have communist form of government. And the form of government is what we call socio-demographic factors. These are factors that has an effect on a particular environment. Look at the West. Like the West, they don't have chiefs like we have, chindas like we have. That culture is socio-demographic. Now, if you bring democracy to a people who have been used to chiefs and funds and their command, to tell them that they have to vote these chiefs and funds in a manner of which after 2 years, imagine that your chief in your village is voted after 6 years, there's a problem because of socio-demographic factors. Look at democracy and you say, what is democracy? Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The fund of my village is for the people, is by the people, and is into the people. So you cannot equate it to limit democracy only in the cast of ballot or select a few.
That's the question. I'm saying that these African countries that accepted democracy, were they ready for the independence?
Lasha,
they would have said, no, we are not ready.
They were ready for independence, and they were ready not to embrace the contextual West definition of democracy. Let me give you an example. John Bolton, a senior U.S. security official, CNN interview openly confessed that the U.S. has been responsible for coup d'etats. I have the video. Now, is it about democracy? Let's look at democracy. Let's look at democracy. Let's come to the first coup d'etat was in 1963 in Togo. That was the first coup d'etat. From then you started having coup d'etat in Sankara. You started having coup d'etat when Sankara took over. And Sankara also, you come now to Cameroon, there was an attempted coup d'etat. Was it because Cameroon was not practicing democracy when you had the attempted coup d'etat? Coup d'etat is not a lack of democracy. You can be a Democrat. Doctor made it clear that you should be there for the people and you should not be there for your belly. And let me give you an example.
When you're a Democrat, you have to respect the verdict of any election, right?
Lasha, is Libya now, is the West introduction of democracy in Libya better than the dictatorship of Gaddafi? Libya is a Harvard of terrorism. In fact, Libya is a safe haven for terrorism. Libya is a place where modern day slavery is taking place. Dehumanization is taking place. Look at when Gaddafi was, when there was no democracy. Let's look at democracy. Even the West in itself is fighting against the democracy. Let's look at currently what is happening in America. What is democracy? The unit of analysis for democracy is free speech. Free speech. Look at America. How free are people to express their view? When COVID-19 came, doctor is in his doctor's field, and doctor can bear me witness on this. You could not speak against the virus. You'll be censored online, you'll be deplatformed, you'll be called a conspiracy theorist. But now research has shown that those who are questioning about the virus had a point. Or is that democracy? Democracy is a share of idea that I respectfully disagree with doctor for a particular goal. But how democratic is democracy for those who are even practicing it? Look at those nations practice democracy. Okay, let's go to democracy. England, what kind of democracy are they practicing? America is dealing with Saudi Arabia. What kind of democracy are they practicing? China, what kind of democracy? Go to, even when the current late president John Pombe Magufuli took over in Tanzania of blessed memory, his democracy that he brought was different. He isolated himself and made the nation a better place. Was that the kind of democracy? Even coming out to what they are saying, doctor, what they are saying in Rwanda. Paul Kagame, they are telling the world he's undemocratic, But look at where the nation is going. You have unit of analysis to measure that this is good governance. So democracy is not measured in terms of how free people can speak or how free they cannot speak, but it's measured on how much impact has been given to the people. As Dr. Nick made mention that how much effort have you been given to feed my sheep. So I want to conclude here before you take the mic by saying that, Lasha, the issue is Africa was not ready for democracy, and that is what the West is using as a unit of analysis to stay back in neo-colonialism, to say we are coming to reinforce democracy. Today in America, President Trump is facing serious legal battle. If we look at democratic principle, I have a right to disagree with an election. We go to court and we prove it in court, but he is disagreeing. They are saying that he's an insurrectionist and he's not accepting the verdict of the election. But if that had happened to an opposition candidate in Africa, America will intervene. Is that democracy? I rest my case.
Dr. Michael Dimancho, let me come back to you to ask you this question. The position of the African Union that gave, an ultimatum to the coup leaders to reinstate the democratically elected president has been interpreted by many as an institutional form of dictatorship being practiced by ECOWAS and other institutions within the African continent. Do you share that opinion, that the position of ECOWAS is a clear, what many have interpreted as institutional dictatorship being promoted by ECOWAS?
Already there is even something wrong with ECOWAS giving an ultimatum to Niger. ECOWAS is an economic grouping.
But they have the military arm. They work with nations that can supply.
They are usurping powers. This is the prerogative of the African Union, if African Union was anything to go by. The ECOWAS is purely an economic union. If they should be having a military, their military should be like this council police that they have here in Cameroon. Let me give an example. They have no might to intervene in something of that nature. It is a prerogative of the African Union. And you see, that has always been the case. And of course, like the dog that barks and never bites, it is their constitutional right to condemn what has happened. They are all birds of a feather. That one we know.
They did not just condemn, they threatened.
They threatened, and I know that even Nigeria...
They even get a deadline.
Yes, and the deadline has passed. Has passed. That's why I'm telling you that it's a backing dog that has no teeth. You have understood what I'm saying. And secondly, you see, Nigeria went as far as getting electricity in Niger. You know, in Nigeria supplies electricity in Niger. And this has already caused more anger and more uprising in the people. How can Nigeria, what electricity, first of all, is Nigeria getting? Nigeria has called epileptic electricity. I have a friend who is in Abuja now. He has been for 24 hours, and with a low battery, because in Abuja, in the capital, because there has been power outage for the last 24 hours. How will Nigeria be giving electricity to Niger? Let me come to the second point. Niger is like a major power in uranium in Africa, and that is a source of nuclear power. Yeah. How will Niger, of all, that is supposed to be producing electricity and distributing for free to the citizen, going to take electricity from Nigeria? Now you see the kind of leaders and kind of leadership we have in Cameroon. And where is the uranium going to? France. France, 80% of nuclear energy in the homes is from Niger. Now, you now see that at independence, that's why I'm telling you that the issue of democracy should be scraped up. At independence, these people played us very fast. They played us the first one. Let me tell you how they played the first one. They pretended to grant us independence. But at the onset, they choose those who will be president at that very moment, at independence. That is where it all started. Either we got independence for the wrong reasons, or the wrong people came up. And that is how we started. And you know, if you look at the president who, so-called democratic president, who have been in power in Africa, is a lineage. Those, what you call democracy, is a lineage. Means that nobody comes out democratically without having a link with this person or with this person. If it is not from maybe the same region or the same family, it should be from the same party. It is very different from somebody from a different party to easily accept power democratically in Africa. That you already understand. And for the wrong reason, means that what? Let me give an example of South Africa. South Africa, we sympathize with them with the issue of apartheid. But finally, when they got what we call independence, Mandela, I don't want to call it an empty basket that he gave to South Africans. He gave them a political independence and not an economic independence. Let me tell you, we need to open our minds. People celebrate and say, yes, Mandela, oh, this is it. He is not my hero. That's why I'm saying this. Because this is what happened. We got independence for the wrong reasons. We were happy that, oh, like a Diaxin Kugo, you see, get some records. Our father used to dance. Independence, you ask yourself, what were they dancing for? They were dancing for the wrong reason, because independence was gone for the wrong reason. Meaning that they actually gave what they called independence, put their people there, and they remained with what was...
Doctor, what you are saying now, does it not substantiate what I earlier raised about African leaders not having their hands being tied?
And I told you here on this platform that we are the cause. We, the citizens, we have abandoned them to themselves.
Yeah.
The point is, a president is supposed to be authoritative. A president is supposed to have confidence. A president is supposed to impose. A president is supposed to feel protected. But the moment the president feels that there is a loophole, he wants to ally with a person who can actually assure. Because people come up for the wrong reasons. We have very few people who have come and they are speaking out.
Okay.
We have had people like Sankara who came up and spoke out and said, I will die for my people. Whatever you think, it is not my problem. We have some of those few examples of people who have often come to serve. And that is why I stand to support what we call military coup d'etat. Because these are very, very courageous guys. And when you listen to Nigerians, those from Niger, the way they spoke, they have one enemy. And you know their enemy is France. It is already good that they identify where their problem is coming from. Whether it is an outer problem or not, the point is that they are already identifying something. And they are saying that we want to reassert that identity that we have as Nigerians. And that is the issue. The wrong people coming on to power. Military coming up now gives us a sign of hope, because
you say you support military coups.
Yes.
Are you happy with what is happening in Chad, the neighboring Chad?
Yeah, let me tell you, there are military coups. We need to define what we call a military coup. What happened in Chad is a masqueradic military coup, Because
But the population
who
came
told
out,
to support or to denounce?
to support.
Voilà. Why are they coming out? And now you are bringing to another concept of change. Because the father was a bad man, they think the son will be a good man. But then that's not the issue. The issue is that of change. That people want change, even for its own sake. That you should not be there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know that there's a saying that when somebody is drowning, you can hang on a snake. That is the thing. They are not happy because a new leader has come. They are happy because there's that thing called change that they want to see. And let me tell you, that will not be for long. Okay.
We're joined by Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel. Like I announced him, he was caught up in traffic somewhere just near the studio. Thank you for joining Senior Barrister Ashu.
Thank you, Kinsley. Welcome to the program.
Welcome, Barrister.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Before you came in, we were discussing on the confirmation of the remains of Indian delegates. We had the panelists share their opinions on what they think. You saw the images today. What is your comment on the new development?
Well, it's a war crime. It's a war crime. You arrest people who are doing their duty, carry them, go and keep them for some time, for years, and then after you execute them, it's a war crime. These are people who committed no offense. Their only offense was that they were serving their nation. So I consider it.
But some of the perpetrators or those who committed the act, they are being fed at the DDR center.
3 square meals a day.
3 square meals a day.
We have internet.
Look,
The guy is even the one that went and shot the
Mr.
place where they were buried.
Mr. Kingsley, on this very platform, I was with Mr. Kum when we talked about the resolution that was voted by the U.S. Congress on Cameroon, and in which it was said that the perpetrators of all war crimes in this country will be picked up. So it looks like people don't understand what is happening. I want to encourage many of them to go to DDR because there will be otherwise no other way of identifying the war criminals. So when the time comes for prosecution, it will be easier to identify the war criminals.
What you are saying, are you not scaring those who want to come and join the DDR center?
I am telling you, I'm just giving you.
Like today, if you have a choice.
I am just giving you confirmation that nobody will run away. Nobody will run away. Let them keep coming. When the time comes, international community will just carry them all. All those who take money and go to stay outside, they are wasting their time. They have been seen already, and they will be picked up when time comes to be prosecuted for war crimes. So you see, the Indian unfortunate massacres, you see, that is a war crime by my standing.
Okay, Senior Barrister, our focus tonight is the coup in Niger, the crisis in Niger. What risk and lessons for Africa and the world?
Please, you see, when we talk of Niger, we are tempted to think that is a country that is miles away. Niger is a country that is closer to us than we may imagine. In all the major cities of Cameroon, when you go to each roundabout, you find families of beggars. The father and the mother sit there and they send the children down to go harass people begging. Those are people from Niger. You can imagine it. Now, when you go down to our streets, you see men and women hawking traditional medicine. Those are people from Niger. Now, you imagine at what level the degree of poverty has touched this country. That the citizens are forced to leave their country and go to neighboring countries. It's not only Cameroon. Go to Nigeria, it's the same thing. They are there as well. What is the reason? If they stay in Niger, they have a choice either to live or to die. So they have no choice but to go outside and beg. Now, the person who is responsible for this is the French. France is responsible. I consider this open eye. It's open eye.
What do you mean by open eye?
Okay. At independence, France granted independence. France never granted independence to anybody. That independence was granted by the UN, but the French made open eye to the 14 African states. How can you ask a person who is not existing to sign a treaty? Let me take a case of Cameroon. The Accords in Cameroon were signed in 1959. Was there a state of Cameroon? Was there a Republic of Cameroon in 1959? Legally speaking, you don't have a juristic person, a public juristic person who can contract. I call it open eye because they forced the people who were there at that time to sign those accords, which are legally not binding. But since they use their military might, their sects, and their money to make you open eye, they make open eye to our leaders who have cowed to carry their governments to go show them for approval, to align our educational policies to theirs. Is open eye, and it is that open eye that has made them go to Niger. Many people think that Niger has only uranium. No. I was following a program on one French TV this morning, and I realized that Niger is also mineral rich, and many of the land minerals have been reserved, have been kept as a French reserve. Now, my good brother here said, how can Niger, that is a uranium producer, that was supposed to produce energy for free and distribute to other people, be begging for electricity from Nigeria?
That is even suffering from electricity problem.
When I looked at the economic figures, I was told that Areva pays the Niger government, I think 27,000 francs per kilogram of uranium. 27,000 francs. Other countries sell that very kilogram for almost 235,000 francs. Look at that. They count the only economic mineral of the country. You loot. That's looting. It's looting. On top of that, now you carry a stooge and put there, so that he does only your bidding. I say it is open eye because the French have no right and no reason to be in Niger. Now, let me just anticipate you. We have been hearing that ECOWAS wants to send troops to Niger. And when I heard that thing for the first time, I put my hands on the head. I said, what stupidity? How can people be this stupid? The coup plotters made their coup a bloodless coup. They kill nobody.
Yes.
They have Bazoum in keeping. Now you want to come and bombard them to install Bazoum. What do you think the most logical thing for the coup plotter to do will be? To avoid being bombarded. It's not to kill Bazoum.
Of course.
It's stupidity. They think that, you think that you come to invade Niger to install Bazoum. The people you are coming to will sit there and begin to look at. They will kill the Bazoum and his entire cabinet. When you invade, who will you install? You say no, it's stupidity. So I think that this ECOWAS, who have never built a single store in Niger, they have not built a single classroom in Niger, who want to go and destroy what they never constructed, they should have a rethink. The people of Niger are asking for one simple thing. We want to eat, we want to live, we want to send our children to school. We don't want our children to be beggars in neighboring countries. Is that too much to ask for? I think that it is time for our African leaders to stand up and talk for themselves. I congratulate the Burkina Faso, Mali, Algeria, and Mauritania who have stood up that if there's any fight there, we shall join.
It's terrible. Tayyip Erdogan recently supported the coup. He said French.
Okay.
I watched in an interview.
I want to say something else.
From Turkish president.
I said this was a monumental foolishness because you cannot be carrying war to a place where you know a strong man is sitting. It is no secret that Malian forces have in their ranks Russian forces. It's no secret. Now Mali said that they are going to Niger. You think the Russian forces will stay behind?
Mali, Burkina Faso, even Algeria.
So any attack on Niger will be a confrontation with Russia. And then that is only
So
my
what does that
analysis.
mean for the peace of the region?
I think that if the
sub-region?
junta in Niger simply asks Russia for help, then whoever is going there will be going to.
Yes, that's what now. Yes,
Senior barrister, what would this mean for the peace of the sub-region?
Now, I think the sub-region would gain more if the countries are encouraged to cut off the strings of neocolonialism and allow Africans govern themselves. There's no reason why Francophone Africa should continue sending all its money to France. France is a uranium producer. They don't have 1 millimeter of uranium mine.
Even gold.
Timber. They carry Cameroon timber and they are timber producers. They don't have 1 millimeter of forest. What nonsense is that? No, it is time Africans stood up to their rights and say, look, take your soldiers away, leave our economies alone. I call those their accords open eye accord because at law they are a non-entity. They are legal nullity. Because you cannot ask a child to sign a contract. A country that does not exist, you force it to sign a contract. And then after independence, you come now to say you are enforcing it. Nonsense.
Barrister, you are a lawyer. You are a lawyer, senior barrister. All these things are happening in the face of the UN, the EU, other international, institutions. Is there no other way that these institutions can force these countries that are doing the open eye, in quote you are talking about, to leave these African countries? Thank you.
It looks like you have forgotten that when the Western nations or the big nations of the world met in Yalta, Dumbarton, or San Francisco, they were going there to protect their interests. It's not for nothing that they created a Security Council that will mirror all the big people. They were there to protect their interests. Now, what is happening is that the interest of one of them, the major interest of one of them is at stake. France. The French interests are at stake.
A veto power.
And I learned that NATO,
America has about 2,000.
I learned that NATO has sent some warplanes to Senegal, waiting to be used in Niger. I saw some images of something like that. I mean, look at that type of nonsense. You want to protect somebody's interest in a place where you have never done anything. We have all seen the abject poverty in which the people of Niger are living. So you want them to die? You want to erase them off the surface of the earth because of the uranium God gave them and other minerals. Look, from the history, we were told that the richest man who has ever existed was called Mansa Musa.
Yes.
Mansa Musa he had so much gold. Where do you think that gold ends? That's the untold story. They don't tell you that Mali has been divided into two. The Malians, where they say Malian government, they are in the south. The north is in the hands of people who are financed by imperialists. And they control the minerals. No, it's a shame. I think the better thing for us to stand for is for that all these colonial forces should leave African states alone. Let the Africans manage their economies. We don't need French Central Bank to manage CFA for us.
Okay, Dr. Nee, before I come to you, let me take some few messages that came in. This one says, good evening to everyone in the studio. Unfortunately, in Africa, we can't talk of leaders because we have rulers and not leaders in Africa. That's Gilbert writing from Kumba. This other one says, democracy has been in Africa for ages. Democracy is simply putting the people and their choices and decisions at the center and carrying them along, which is what Africa had been practicing. The only problem is that we try to follow the white man's definition of democracy, which is a weapon used by the West to place their representatives at the helm of government using a scam called elections. Representatives we call president today. We don't have presidents in Africa, but Western representatives. Reasons why they don't care about the people's interest, but that of the West. They minimize the people, yet run to give account about the outcome of national dialogue to their master. This is Tiku Felix writing from Buya. This other one says, good evening, Mr. Lasha and panelists in the studio, and pose risk implication on development, conflict and instability hinder economic growth and development efforts. The Niger crisis can divert resources away from essential sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Lessons for governance. The crisis highlights the importance of effective governance systems, inclusive political processes, and addressing grievances. It emphasizes the need for strong institutions, rule of law, and mechanisms to address social and economic disparities to prevent conflicts from arising. This, you did not say, and then you say, okay, say you are Gibson ACM from Southern, so I don't know what that means. You wanted to say Southwest and Northwest, just wrote there Southern, did not finish the message. Okay, televiewers, you are just joining us, you are watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime Television with me, Lasha Kingsley. We've been discussing the crisis in Niger. As we all know, the coup leaders have shut down the airspace, promising to target or shoot down anything that fly over the country. Dr. Ngwnyam, we are dwelling so much on, I've listened to Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel. He spoke about the resources that Niger has, and apparently it's as if resources have become a curse, not blessing, for most African countries.
Yes, those resources are kind of like a curse. But even before we go into that, let me just, I think we are midway down the road now, just give me 5 minutes, let me just point something to all Africans. It's very important, because in all the talking, we will condemn, we would praise, we would say emotions and so on. But the question is, what is the problem? What is the problem, and how can we fix the problem? So I want to help us to understand the problem, so that as Africans we'll all rise and begin to correct the problem. You know, there is something that I read, I'm sure Michael must have seen it, I sent it on WhatsApp this evening, White Supremacy Handbook. You saw the white supremacy. When you read that and you understand how the white people are controlling Africans, they actually treat us like babies, and they have no respect for us. And so you need to read that to understand, because you need to know how others think about you. If you don't know it, then of course you will always be a fool dancing. You know, like they say that when you see a toad in the dancing on the road, the drummer is in the bush. So these people have been playing drums, and we have Africans dancing on the street without knowing why they are dancing. And you know, there was that other thing, experiment, where it was said that if